Take a seat, grab yourself a mug of something tasty. The Story of Beowulf, translated from Anglo-Saxon into modern English prose by Ernest J.B. Kirtlan, 1914. Spake then Unferth, the son of Eglaf, who sat at the feet of the lord of the Danes and opened a quarrel. For the journey of Beowulf, of the brave seafarer, was a vexation to him, for he could not brook that ever any other man than he himself should obtain greater fame in all the earth. "What," said he, "art thou that Beowulf who didst contend with Breca, and strove for the mastery in swimming o'er wide seas? When ye two for pride were searching the waves, and for foolish boasting risked your lives in the deep waters? No man could dissuade you from that sorrowful journey, neither friend nor foe. When ye two swam in the sea, when ye two enfolded the waves with your arms and measured the sea waves and brandished your arms as you glided o'er the ocean, the sea boiled with waves, the wintry whelming, and for 7 nights long ye were toiling in the stress of seas. But he o'erpowered thee in swimming, for a greater strength had he. Then, at the morning tide, the sea bore him up to the land of the Hetherims. Thence he was seeking the friend of his people, his own dear country, the land of the Brondings, the fair city of refuge where he had his own folk, and a city and rings. The son of Beanson soothly fulfilled his boasting against thee. So do I deem it a worse matter, though thou art everywhere doughty in the rush of battle and grim warfare, if thou shalt be daring to bide near Grendel a night-long pace." Then Beowulf spoke, the son of Ecgtheow. "What, my friend Unferth, drunken with beer, many things thou art saying about Breca, and talkst of his journey. But soothly, I tell thee, that I had the greater strength in swimming, and endurance in the waves. We two agreed when we were youngsters, and boasted, for we were both still in the days of our youth, that we, in the ocean, would be risking our lives. And so indeed we did. We had a naked sword hard in our hands when we were swimming. We two were thinking to guard us against whale fishes, nor over the sea waves may he be floating a whit far from me, more quickly on the waters. Then we together were in the sea of the space for 5 nights till the flood, till the boiling waters drove us asunder, and the coldest of weather and the darkest of night, and a wind from the north battle-grim turned against us, and rough were the waves. And the mind of the merfishes was stirred when my shirt of mail that was hand-locked gave to me help against the foe. The decorated battle robe lay on my breast all adorned with gold, and the doomed and dire foe drew to the bottom. And fast he had me grim in his grip. Still to me was granted that I reached to the monster with that point of my sword, and the mighty sea-deer carried off the battle-rush through my hand. So then evil-doers did often oppress me, and I served them with my dear sword as was most fitting. Not all of the feasting had they any joy. Evil destroyers sat round the banquet at the bottom of the sea, that they might seize me. But in the morning, wounded by my sword, they lay up on the foreshore, put to sleep by my weapon so that they hindered no more the faring of the seagoers. Light came from the eastward, the bright beacon of God. The waves grew less that I could catch sight of the seaness, the windy walls. Weird often saveth the earl that is undoomed when his courage is doughty. Nevertheless, it happened that I slew with my sword 9 of the sea monsters. Nor have I heard under vault of heaven of a harder night struggle, nor of a more wretched man on the sea streams. Still, I escaped from the grasp of the foes, with my life, and weary of the journey, when the sea bore me up, on the flood tide, on the welling of the waves, to the land of the Finns. Nor have I heard concerning thee of any such striving or terror of swords. Breca never yet, nor either of you two, did such a deed with shining sword in any battle gaming. Not that I will boast of this too much. Yet wast thou the slayer of thy brother, thy chief kinsman, and of Eglaf? And for this in hell shalt thou suffer a curse, though thy wit be doughty. And soothly, I tell thee, O son of Eglaf, that Grendel, that hateful monster, never had done such terrors to thy life and humiliation in heart, if thy mind and thy soul were as battle-fierce as thou thyself dost say. But he has found that he needed to not fear the feud, the terrible sword thrust of your people, the Danes. He taketh forced toll, and spaketh none of the Danish people, but joyfully wageth war, putteth them to sleep, and feedeth on them, and expecteth no fight from the Danes. But I shall ere long offer him in war the strength and the courage of the Geats. Let him go, who can to the mead all proudly when morning shall shine from the south another day over the children of men. Then in the hall the giver of rings was grey-haired and battle-brave. The prince of the Danes was hopeful of help. The guardian of the folk fixed on Beowulf his firm purpose thought. There was laughter amongst heroes, din resounded, and words were winsome. Wealhtheow went forth, the queen of Hrothgar, mindful of kinship and decked out in gold. She greeted Beowulf in the hall. And then the lovely wife first proffered the goblet to the lord of the East Danes, and bade him be blithe at the beer-drinking, he who was dear to all his people. And gladly he took the banquet and hall cup, he the victorious king. The lady of the helmings went round about every one of the youthful warriors, and proffered the costly cup, until the time came that the ring-adorned queen, most excellent in spirit, bore the mead cup then to Beowulf. She, the wise in words, greeted the Geats, and gave thanks to God that she had her desire, that she might trust in any earl for help against such crimes. He gladly received it, he, the battle-fierce warrior, from the hand of Wealhtheow, and then began singing, inspired by a warlike spirit. Beowulf spake, the son of Ecgtheow. I had intended at once to work out the will of this your people when I sat forth over the sea and sat in my sea-boat with the troop of my people, or that I would fall in the slaughter fast in the fiend's grip. I shall yet acquit myself, as befitteth an earl, or in the mead-hall await my last day. And well the lady liked the words, the boasting of the Geat, and that lovely queen went all decked out in gold to sit by her lord. Then mighty words were spoken in the hall as before, by the people in joyance and the noise of the victors, until the son of Halfdane straightway would be seeking his evening rest. And he knew that a battle was doomed in the high hall to the monster when no longer they could see the light of the sun, or darkening night came stalking over the shapes of shadows. A troop of warriors rose up. The lord greeted the other, Hrothgar greeted Beowulf, and wished him good health and the warding of that wine-hall. And he spake the word, Since the time that I could lift my hand or my shield, never have I given the mighty hall of the Danes into the care of any, except now, to thee. Have now, and hold thou this best of houses. Be thou mindful of honor, and show thyself courageous and wakeful against foes. Nor shalt thou lack joy if thou escapest from that brave work with life. Then Hrothgar departed with his troop of heroes. He, the prince of the Scyldings, out of hall went he, for the battle chieftain would be seeking out Wealhtheow his queen, that they might go to rest. The glory of kings had appointed a wall ward, as men say, against Grendel. A thane was in, waiting on the prince of the Danes, and his watch was keeping against the giant. The lord of the Geats readily trusted the proud strength, the favour of God. Then doffed he the iron coat of mail and his helmet from his head, and gave his sword bedecked, the choicest of weapons, to a thane that was serving, and bade him to hold ready his armour. Then the good man spoke some words of boasting. I reck not myself meaner in war powers and the works of battle than Grendel doth himself, for I will not with sword put him to sleep, and be taking his life away. Though well I might do it, he knows not of good things, that he may strike me, or hew my shield, though brave he may be in hostile working. But we two by right will forbear the sword, if he dare be seeking warfare without weapon. And then God all-knowing, the Holy Lord, shall adjudge the glory on whichever side he may think meet. Then the bold in fight got him to rest, and the pillow received the head of the earl, and many a keen sea-warrior lay down on his bed in the hall about him. None of them thought that he thence would ever seek another dear home. Folk were free city where he was a child, for they had heard that fell death had taken, ere this too many in that wine-hall, of the people of the Danes. But the Lord gave weavings of war speed to the people of the Geats, both comfort and help, so that they all overcame their enemies through the craft of one man, and by his might only. And truly it is said that God Almighty doth wield forever the race of men. Then came in the wan night the shadow-goer gliding. Warriors were sleeping when they should have been keeping guard over the palace. All save one only. It was well known to men that their constant foe could not draw them into shadowy places when the Creator was unwilling. But he, ever wakeful, in angry mood, and fiercely indignant against the foe, was waiting the issue. Then came Grendel, stalking from the moors among the misty hill slopes, and he bore God's anger, and the wicked scather of humankind fully intended to ensnare a certain one in the high hall. So he wended his way under the welkin to where he knew that the best of wine halls, the gold hall of man, was adorned with gold plating. Nor was that the first time that he sought out the home of Hrothgar, nor ever in former or later days did he find a harder welcome from the hall thanes. Then the creature, bereft of all joy, came to the great hall, and the door, strongly bound with firebands, soon sprang open at his touch, and the evil-minded one, in his fury, burst open the door of the palace. And soon after this the enemy, angry in mind, was treading o'er the doomed floor, and a fearsome light streamed forth from his eyes like as to a flame. And he could see many a warrior in that palace, a troop of peace-lovers asleep together, a company of kinsmen, and he laughed aloud. Then the terrible monster fully intended to cut off from life every one of them there, when he was expecting abundance of meat. But that fate was not yet, that he should lay hold of any more of humankind after that night. Then did Beowulf, kinsman of Hygelac, see the dire distress, how the wicked Scather would fare with sudden grip. Nor did the monster think to delay, but at the first he quickly laid hold of a sleeping warrior, and tore him to pieces all unawares, and bit at the flesh, and drank the streaming blood, and devoured huge pieces of flesh. And soon he had eaten up both feet and hands of the man he had killed. Then he stepped up to the great-hearted warrior, where he lay on the bed, and took him in his hands. He reached out his hand against the enemy, and quickly received him with hostile intent, and sat upon his arm. The keeper of crimes was soon finding that he never had met in all the quarters of the earth amongst other men a greater hand-grip, and in mind and heart he was fearful, and eager to be gone and to flee away into darkness to seek the troop of devils. But that was not his fate, as it had been in days of yore. Then the good kinsman of Hygelac remembered the evening talk, and stood upright, and laid hold upon him. His fingers burst, the giant was going forth, but the earl stepped after. The famous one intended to escape more widely, howsoever he might, and to flee on his way thence to the sloping hollows of the fens. That journey was sorrowful, which the harmful Scather took to heart. The lordly hall resounded, and great terror there was to all the Danes, the castle dwellers, to each of the brave. And both the mighty guardians were fiercely angry. The lordly hall resounded, and great terror there was to all the Danes, the castle dwellers, to each of the brave. And both the mighty guardians were fiercely angry. The hall resounded. Then was it great wonder that the wine hall withstood the bold fighters, that it fell not to the earth, that fair earth-dwelling. But very firmly it was standing, cunningly shaped by the craft of the smith within and without. Then on the floor was many a mead bench, as I have heard tell, decked out with gold, where the fierce ones were striving. Nor did the wise Danes formerly suppose that any man could break down a hall so up in smoke. The roaring went up now enough, and an awful terror came to the North Danes, to each one of those who heard weeping from the ramparts, the enemy of God singing a fierce song, a song that was empty of victory, and the captive of hell lamenting his sorrow, for he that was strongest of men in strength held them fast on the day of his life. The Prince of Earls would not at all let go alive the murderous comer, nor did he count his life as of any use to any of the peoples, and many an Earl of Beowulf's brandished the old heirloom, and were wishful to defend the life of their far-famed liege lord, if they might do so. And they knew not, when they entered the battle, that the hard-thinking ones, the battle-men, that they thought to hew on all sides seeking out his spirit, that not any choice iron over the earth nor any battle-weapon would be greeting the foe, but that he had forsworn all victorious weapons and swords, and miserable should be his passing on the day of this life, and the hostile sprite should journey far into the power of devils. Then he found out that he who did crimes long before this with mirthful mind to humankind, he who was a foe to God, that his body would not last out, but the proud kinsman of Hygelac had him in his hands, and each was loathsome to the other while he lived. The terrible monster, sore with wounds, was waiting. The gaping wound was seen on his shoulder. His sinews sprang open, and the bone lockers burst. And great victory was given to Beowulf. Thence would Grendel, mortally wounded, flee under the fen slopes to seek out a joyless dwelling. The more surely he knew he had reached the end of his life, the number of his days. Joy befell all the Danes after the slaughter rush. So he had cleansed the hall of Hrothgar, he who had come from far, the proud and stout-hearted one, and saved them from strife. He rejoiced in the night work and in his glorious deeds. His boast he had fulfilled, this leader of the Geats, which he had made to the East Danes, and likewise made good all the distress and sorrows which they suffered of yore from the foe, and which through dire need they had to endure. Of distresses not a few. And when the battle-brave men laid down the hand, the arm and shoulder under the wide roof, That was a manifest token. Then in the morning, as I have heard say, was many a battle warrior round about the gift hall. Came the folk leaders from far and from near along the wide ways to look at the marvel. Nor did his passing seem a thing to grieve over any of the warriors of those who were scanning the track of the glorious wight. How weary in mind he had dragged along his life steps, on the way thence doomed and put to flight, and overcome in the fight of the lake of the sea monsters. There was the sea, boiling with blood, the awful surge of waves all mingled with hot gore. The death-doomed one died the lake when, void of joy, as he laid down his life in the fen for refuge. And hell received him. Thence after departed the old companions. Likewise, many a young one from the joyous journeys, proud from the lake to ride on mares, the youths on their horses. And there was the glory of Beowulf proclaimed, and many a one was saying that no man was a better man. No, none in the whole wide world under the arch of the sky. Of all the shield-bearers, neither south nor north by the two seas, nor a whit did they blame in the least their friend and lord, the glad Hrothgar, for he was a good king. Meanwhile, the famed in battle let the fallow mares leap and go faring forth to the contest, whenever the earthways seemed fair unto them and well known for their choiceness. And the thane of the king, he who was laden with many a vaunt, and was mindful of songs, and remembered a host of very many old sagas, he found many other words, but bound by the truth. And a man began wisely to sing the journey of Beowulf, and to tell skilful tales with speeding that was good, and to interchange words. He told all that ever he had heard concerning Sigmund, with his deeds of courage and much that is unknown, the strife of Walsing, and the wide journeys which the children of men knew not at all, the feud and the crimes. But Fitela was not with him when he would be saying any of such things, the uncle to the nephew, for always they were comrades in need of all the strivings. They had laid low very many of the giants' race by means of the sword, and after his death day, a no little fame sprang up for Sigmund when he, the hard in battle, killed the worm, the guardian of the hoard. He alone, the child of the Atheling, hazarded a fearful deed under the grey stone. Nor was Fitela with him. Still, it happened to him that his sword pierced through the wondrous worm, and it stood in the wall, that doughty iron. And the dragon was dead. And so this monster had gained strength in that going so that he might enjoy the hoard of risings by his own doom. He loaded the sea-boat, and bore the bright treasures onto the ship's bosom. He, the son of Wales. The worm melted hot. He was of wanderers, the most widely famous in deeds of courage amongst men, the protector of warriors. He formerly throve thus. Then the warfare of Heremond was waning, his strength and his courage, and he was betrayed among the giants to the hands of the foes, and sent quickly away. And too long did whelming sorrow vex his soul. He was a source of care to his people, to all the nobles, and to many a proud churl often was lamenting in former times the way of life of the stout-hearted, they who trusted him for the bettering of bales, that the child of their lord should always be prospering, and succeeded to his father's kingdom, and hold the folk, the hoard and city of refuge, the kingdom of heroes, the country of the Danes. But Beowulf Higelac's kinsman was fairer to all men, but crime assailed Heremod. Sometimes they passed along the fallow streets, contending on mares. Then came the light of morning and hastened forth, and many a stiff-minded messenger went to the high hall to see the rare wonder. Likewise the king himself, the ward of the Hoard of Rings, came treading all glorious with a great suite forth from the bridal bower, and choice was his bearing, and his queen with him passed along the way to the mead hall with a troop of maidens. Hrothgar spake. He went to the hall and stood on the threshold, and saw the steep roof all decked out with the gold in the hand of Grendel. "Let thanks be given quickly to God for this sight," said he. "Often I waited for the loathsome one, for the snares of Grendel. May God always work wonder after wonder. He, the guardian of glory. It was not long ago that I expected not a bettering of any woes forever. When, doomed to blood, this best of all houses stood all stained with gore. Now has this hero done a deed, through the power of the Lord, which none of us formerly could ever perform with all our wisdom. Lo! Any woman who gave birth to such a son among humankind may say, if she yet live, that the Creator was gracious unto her in bearing of children. Now, O Beowulf, I will love thee in heart as my son. Hold well to this new peace, nor shall there be any lack of joys to thee in the world, over which I have power. Full oft I, for less, have meted out rewards and worshipful gifts to a meaner warrior, one weaker in strife. Thou hast framed for thyself mighty deeds, so that thy doom liveth always and forever. May the All-Wielder ever yield thee good, as he now doth. Beowulf spake, the son of Ecgtheow. We framed to fight that brave work with much favour, and hazarded a deed of daring in the might of the unknown. I quickly gave you to see the monster himself, the enemy, in his fretted armour ready to fall. I thought to twist him quickly with hard grip on a bed of slaughter, so that he should lie in the throes of death, because of my hand grip, unless he should escape with his body. But I could not cut off his going when the Creator willed it not. I cleft him not readily, that deadly fiend. He was too strong on his feet. Nevertheless, he left behind his hand as a life protection to show the track, his arm, and his shoulders. But not by any means thus did that wretched creature get any help, nor by that did the evildoer, brought low by sin, live any longer. But sorrow hath him in his fatal grip, closely encompassed with baleful bands. There shall a man covered with sins be biding mickle doom, as the shining Creator will prescribe. Then was the man silent, the son of Ecglaf, in his boasting speech about deeds of battle, when the Ethelings looked at the hand high up on the roof, by the craft of the Earl, and the fingers of the foe, there before each one, and each of the places of the nails was like as to steel, the claw of the heathen, the uncanny claw of the battle warrior. Everyone was saying that no very good iron of any of the brave ones would touch him at all. They would bear away thence the bloody battle hand of the monster.